The Scorch Trials, Chapter 35, on this PDF, page 121. A nightmare woke Thomas. Something about Minot and Newt being cornered by a bunch of cranks past the gone. Cranks with knives. Angry cranks. The first spill of blood finally jerked Thomas awake. He looked around, scared that he'd yelled or said something. The cab of the truck still lay in the darkness of night. He could barely see Brenda, couldn't even tell if her eyes were open. But she spoke. Bad dream? Thomas settled himself, closed his eyes. Yeah, I can't quit worrying about my other friends. I just hate it so bad that we were separated. I'm sorry that happened. I really am. She shifted in her seat. But I seriously don't think you need to worry. Your Glader buddies seemed capable enough, and even if they weren't, George is one tough monkey. He'll get them through the city just fine. Don't waste the stress on your heart. We're the ones you should be worried about. You're doing a terrible job of making me feel better, Brenda laughed. Sorry, I was smiling when I said that last part, but you couldn't see me, I guess. Thomas looked at his backlit watch, then said, We still have a few hours before the sun comes up. After a short silence, Thomas spoke again. Tell me a little bit more about what life's like now. They took most of our memories. Some of mine came back, but they're sketchy and I don't know if I can trust them. There isn't much there about the outside world either. Brenda sighed deeply. The outside world, huh? Well, it sucks. The temperatures are finally starting to go down, but it'll be forever before the sea levels do the same. It's been a long time since the flares, but so many people died, Thomas. So many. It's actually kind of amazing how everyone who survived stabilized and civilized so quickly. If it weren't for the stupid flare, I think the world would pull through in the long run. But if wishes were fishes, oh, I can't remember, something my dad used to say. Thomas could hardly contain the curiosity that now raced inside him. What did happen? Are there new countries or just one big government? And how does Wicked fit into it all? Are they the government? There are still countries, but they're more unified. Once the flare started spreading like crazy, they combined all their forces, technology, resources, whatever, to start up Wicked. They set up this crazy elaborate testing system and have tried really hard to have quarantined areas. They slowed the flare down, but they can't stop it. I think the only hope is to find a cure. Hope you're right that they've done that. But if they have, they sure haven't shared it with the public yet. So where are we? Thomas asked. Where are we right now? In a truck. When Thomas didn't laugh, she continued, Sorry, bad time for jokes. Judging by the labels on the food, we think we're in Mexico, or what used to be Mexico. It makes the most sense. Now it's called the Scorch. Basically, an area between two tropics, Cancer and Capricorn, is a complete wasteland now. Central and South America, most of Africa, the Middle East and Southern Asia, lots of dead lands, lots of dead people. So, welcome to the Scorch. Isn't it nice of them to send us sweet cranks down here? Man, thoughts raced Thomas's mind, mostly related to how he knew he was a part of Wicked, a huge part, and how the Maze and Group A and B and all the junk they were going through were parts of it too. But he couldn't remember enough for it to make any sense. Man, Brenda asked, that's the best you can come up with? I have too many questions. I can't seem to latch on just one to ask. Do you know about the numbing agent? Thomas looked over at her, wished he could make out more of her face. I think George said something about that. What is it? You know how the world is. New disease, new drugs. Even if it doesn't do jack to the illness itself, they still come up with this stuff. What does it do? Do you have any? Ha! Brenda shouted it with contempt. You think they'd give it to us? Only the important people, the rich people, can get their hands on that junk. They call it the Bliss. numbs your emotions, numbs your brain processes, slows you down to a drunken stupor so you don't feel much, keeps the flare at bay because the virus thrives on your brain, eats at it, destroys it. If there's not a lot of activity, the virus weakens. Thomas folded his arms. There was something very important here, but he couldn't put his finger on it. So it's not a cure, enough though it slows the virus down? Not even close. Just delays the inevitable. The flare always wins in the end. You lose any chance of being rational, having common sense, having compassion. You lose your humanity. Thomas was quiet. Maybe more strongly than ever before, he felt that a memory, an important one, was trying to squeeze its way through the cracks in the wall blocking him from his past. The flare, the brain, going mad, the numbing agent, the bliss, wicked, the trials, what Ratman had said that their response to the variables were what this was all about. Did you fall asleep? Brenda asked after several minutes of silence. No, just too much information. He felt dimly alarmed at what she had said, but he still couldn't get anything together. It's hard to process it all. Well, I'll shut up then. She turned away, rested her head against the door. Push it out of your mind. Won't do you any good. You need rest. Uh-huh, Thomas mumbled, frustrated at having so many clues but no real answers. But Brenda was right. He could definitely use a good night's sleep. He got comfortable and did his best, but it took a long time before he finally dozed off and dreamed. He's older again, probably 14 now. He and Teresa are kneeling on the ground, their ears pressed to the crack of the door, listening, eavesdropping. A man and a woman were talking inside, and Thomas can hear them well enough. The man said first, did you get the address? Did you get the additions to the variables list? Last night, the woman responds. I like what Trent added for the end of the maze trials. Brutal, but we need it to happen. Should create some interesting patterns. Absolutely. Same with the betrayal scenario, if that ever has to play out. The woman makes a noise that must be a laugh, but that sounds strained and humorless. Yeah, I had the same thought. I mean, good Lord, how much can these kids take before they'll go crazy on their own? Not just that, it's risky. What if he dies? We all agree that by then he'll surely be one of the top candidates. He won't. We won't let him. Still, we're not God. He could die. There's a long pause, then the man says, maybe it won't come to that, but I doubt it. The psychs say it will stimulate a lot of the patterns we need. Well, there's a lot of emotion involved with something like that, the woman answers. And according to Trent, some of the hardest patterns to create. I think the plan for those variables is just about the only thing that will work. You really think the trials are going to work? The man asks. Seriously, the scale and logistics of this thing are unbelievable. Think of how much could go wrong. Could. You're right. But what's the alternative? Try it, and if it fails, we'll just be in the same spot as if we'd tried nothing. I guess. Teresa tugs on Thomas's shirt. He looks to see her pointing back down the hall. Time to go. He nods, but leans back in to see if he can catch one last phrase or two. He does. It's the woman. Too bad we'll never see the end of the trials. I know, the man answers, but the future will thank us. The first purple traces of dawn were what woke up Thomas the second time. He couldn't remember stirring once in his sleep since his middle-of-the-night talk with Brenda, not even after the dream. The dream. It had been the strangest one yet. Lots of things said that were already fading, too difficult to grasp and fit into the pieces of his past that were slowly, very slowly beginning to come together again. He allowed himself to feel a little hope that maybe he wasn't in on as much to do with the trials as he'd begun to think. Though he hadn't understood much of his dream, the fact that he and Teresa had been spying meant that they weren't involved in every aspect of the trials. But what could be the purpose of all this? Why would the future thank those people. He rubbed his eyes and stretched, then looked over at Brenda, her eyes still closed, her chest moving with slow and even breaths, her mouth slightly open. Thomas felt his body even stiffer than the day before. The restful slumber had done wonders for his spirit. He felt refreshed, invigorated, somewhat perplexed and the brain dead over his memory dream and all the things Brenda had told him about, but invigorated all the same. He stretched again and was letting out a long yawn when he saw something on the wall of the alley, a large metal plaque riveted to the wall, a sign that looked very familiar. He pushed the door open and stumbled out onto the street and over to it. It was nearly identical to the sign in the maze that had said, "World in Catastrophe, Kill Zone Experiment Department." Same dull metal, same lettering, except this one said something very different, and he stared at it for at least 5 straight minutes before he moved an inch. It said, "Thomas, you're the real leader.